And I want to share Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind. Our teaching says, self-awareness is not enough. It is merely clearing the track for right action. Something has to be done with self-awareness. And I think in this culture of busyness, in this culture of productivity, I mean, I'm so over getting emails about how to be more productive. Anybody else? I'm like, unsubscribe, 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 over it. Because it's, I think we get confused about the doingness and the productivity and what we're supposed to show up as, right? We're supposed to be in service because that's what good spiritual people do. And maybe you're not even spiritual. You're supposed to be in service because it's just what good people do. People say to me all the time, I want to give back. And I'm like, you are breathing, you're giving back. But moving in loving action, allowing Spirit to move through us in divine right action, isn't about showing up in some way we're supposed to. It's about allowing that impulse of love that is God within us to move us in divine right action that is ours to do. It is Clarissa's to do creative content. That's wildly talented. It's what she's been gifted with, so duh. But we all have that. We all have that. As Alexis shared, I have been fed by this community for 25 years. It is mine to give back. Not because she wants God to know she's a good human. We are moved by this impulse of love because that is the nature of God. The nature of God, the nature of Spirit, the nature of the divine, the nature of love itself is active. And it moves us. The reason we spend the time on developing conscious awareness, the reason we spend the time in meditation and prayer and study and all the ways that we practiced and talked about last week, we spend that time to grow our conscious awareness of the truth of who we are, so we can hear those divine prompts, that still small voice. So we can feel that impulse of love that is living itself in our being and trying to move through us. It's not just to sit on a lotus cushion and suddenly become so conscious and experience nirvana. It's about a lived spirituality. We are called the Center for Spiritual Living. We are not the Center for Spiritual Sitting. It is about living this stuff, which is why we are not complete in our transformation if we haven't moved along the entire pathway. If we haven't allowed Spirit to be alive in us, we haven't allowed Spirit to express as us in our own unique way and embody that truth and then move through us in action. That's the whole story. And if we are not moving in that abundant flow of life itself, which is the nature of God, is to flow, is to be in movement, is to be constantly moving, like our very breath. That is the nature of Spirit, which means it's the nature of us. And moving from that place that knows that it knows that it knows is how we create the lives that we want to be living. It's how the world that works for everyone comes into being, and it is how we have the experience of our divine nature. I believe that everybody in this room, everybody who participates in this community, our fundamental desire is to know God. Our fundamental desire is to know our own divinity and to really know that we know that we know that we are a part of that goodness, that we are a unique, incredibly divine expression of the One. But we don't know that till we live it, until we actually have that experience. I know for me, I went into the whole spiritual game Because I did not care about Buddha's new prana. I did not care about Jesus and his rising from the dead. I wanted my own experience. I don't want to read about it in anybody else's sacred text. It's like, if any of this is true, if this God thing is real, show me. I want to know for real. I want the experience. I don't want to think that I know something. I want to know that I know. Anybody else? This is how you know. You live it. You experience it in your own body, in your own life, in your own being. The pathway that we've created here is so that we can all have that. It's not just like some cute church stuff. This is how we know God. This is how we know the truth of who we are as divine beings. It's not magic, although it feels awfully magical when you experience it. And so I want you to take a moment right now, and I invite you online to take this moment with us. Take a moment and go within. And think of a time in this last year where you have allowed yourself to move from that impulse, where something in you was just rising up and it was like, I gotta go do this thing. I gotta go say that thing. I have to stop doing the thing. I want you to find an example of that experience where sometimes something rises in you, in your awareness, that you cannot ignore. We have to move. And I want you to realize that that's your divinity moving you. That's love rising in you. That is your divine nature. Eric Butterworth from the book Spiritual Economics says, you always have within you the inlet that may become the outlet to all there is in God. You always have within you the inlet, the Godness. It is always present. And the more we allow that to flow through us and our actions, the more that inlet can receive and let flow. There's a quote from, it's not an Ayanin, it is Saint Teresa of Avila. And she talks about being the fountain of the one. And she talks about the experience of having so much awareness of that inlet, that inflow of the one through her, that it goes into overflow. And instead of the idea, which I think many of us have, like I love the idea of giving from a place of overflow. I am so full with the aliveness of God that I can't help but to give that away because I am overflowing with it. But what she talks about is when that overflow begins to happen, the vessel grows to hold more. I love that so much. As we allow ourselves to be that inlet in greater and greater and greater ways, which means we have more and more and more and more and more to give away, we grow. That expanded consciousness that we are looking for often in New Thought communities and metaphysic communities. That growing awareness happens through our giving and generosity. It allows us, as we overflow, we hold more. We give more. We become the place that God shows up more. Anybody else pumped about that? Like, that is so exciting to me. We don't even know the edges of our own possibilities. We haven't even grown beyond them yet. I don't know that we can. I don't know that it is possible to reach an edge of givingness, of abundant flow, because God is infinite, which means that we are too, which means we can receive more than we can conceive of, and we can let it move through us generously more than we can conceive of. So I was really curious about the word generous when I was preparing for today. And generosity defined means readiness in giving. I love that. That we are always at the ready to be generous, to give. That we are never offline in our generosity. And it also means to be liberal in giving. The second definition, freedom from meanness or smallness of mind or character. Ooh. I think sometimes we think we can pay our way. I think sometimes that's how we get a little bit trapped in trying to show up as the good person. I gave 7,500 volunteers hours this week. And that somehow can offset your meanness. Or if I write a big enough check, that jerk-face behavior I had at the Thanksgiving dinner table will be erased. But generosity is so much more than giving our time, talent, and treasure. Generosity, I love this. It's a change in our mindset. It's a change in our ability to stay kind when people are all the way on our nerves, which happens a lot during this time of year, yes? I was listening yesterday to one of the teachers I listened to, and he was talking about no matter what hard thing is happening in our lives, we cannot lose sight of God. For me, that's part of that generous mindset, being at the ready, always being ready to be that inlet and outlet. I can never lose sight of the truth of who I am, of who you are, of who God is, of what life is, no matter what hard thing is happening. And there are a lot of hard things happening. Anybody having a hard-free year? Just free of anything difficult. Anybody? Yeah. Can we keep our eye on the prize anyways? Can we stay ready to be the inlet and the outlet of the one? Eric Butterworth went on to say, the kingdom of heaven is within. It is not a place in space, but an inner potentiality of imprisoned splendor that is released through you. I love this so much. Did anybody else hear, release the Kraken? When you heard that, that's the first thing I heard when I read that quote. Release the Kraken. Release the splendor. This is how the kingdom of heaven comes into being. We must set it free. We must allow that imprisoned splendor that is the inlet that we are be released through us. That's why we talk about time, talent, treasure. That's why we talk about love in action. It is an opportunity. It is a place for you to show up and release the splendor that you are. That kingdom of heaven that is within you, that is looking for a way out. I thought about that for a minute. Imprisoned splendor. That's kind of a heavy phrase, yes? Do we really do that? Do we imprison our splendor? And we do. We do. We play small. We think limitation and lack. We pretend we're confused about a decision. Anybody confused about a decision in your life right now? It's okay. We do it all the time. Clarissa and I spent 1.5 years being confused. We are never confused. We are disconnected from what we know that we know that we know. And we always have that inlet of the divine within us. We always have that kingdom of heaven within us. The work becomes accessing it. The work becomes making it real, living it, connecting to it, and being willing to follow the impulse that rises. Often, my experience, we do know what to do and we don't like it. Or we're scared. Or we have the divine idea and we're like, oh, I can't do that. What would they think? What would my family say? Good Lord, the comments on social media. But we know. And it's about releasing that imprisoned splendor, that absolute, authentic action that is only yours to do. And having the courage to do it, as I like to say, living unapologetically as the truth of who you are. That is the pathway of transformation. That is what it means to allow Spirit to move through you. So I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. Close your eyes, go within. Please join us online to do the same. And I want you to ask your divine wisdom, that inlet, that kingdom of heaven within you, to give you one next loving action. What is yours to do next? How are you being moved to show up as the gorgeous emanation of the one that you are? And as that impulse rises in your being right now, I'm going to ask all of us to anchor that beautiful impulse in prayer by shouting on the count of 3 a holy and divine yes. You ready? Online, type it in the comments. Because what I know about the one, it is moving in you, as you, trying to get out through you right now. And so each of us says a holy and sacred yes to that unique, gorgeous impulse that is you. So on 1, 2, we anchor this in prayer. On 3, yes! I love it. So excited to see what comes next.